My project is titled The Practicality of Hinduism. So in this day and age, we live in a world of science. Science overrules anything else that anyone could ever believe, because science is backed up by observation and fact, and that makes it inarguable. This becomes a major problem for many religions, including Christianity and Islam, whose beliefs directly contradict the principles of science. However, the ancient Hindu rishis who created the Vedas and brought down the information from God to the human sense made it very clear that science and Hinduism were to remain separate at all times. This makes Hinduism an everlasting religion, because no matter what scientific knowledge we gain, Hinduism will reign. I'm going to attempt to draw some conclusions between Hinduism and some of the principles that many of us may know from science in this presentation. You can click next. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Thank you. So, I have a general question for everyone. Can anyone tell me how many gods we have in Hinduism? 300,000 we have over there. Anyone else? 3 million? 33 million? Okay, so according to Wikipedia, and of course Wikipedia never lies, it is 330 million gods. But now, is Wikipedia always true? No. So, next slide, please. So, Hinduism's main doctrine in English, as a rough translation, is called monism. So, monism says that there is only God, as opposed to one God or many gods. So, one God we call monotheism, and more than one God we call polytheism. And commonly, Hinduism is referred to a polytheistic religion. However, actually, we are a monoist religion. So now, everything, according to this principle, everything is made up of only one substance, and that is God. Because God created the whole world out of just himself. So, does this sound familiar to anyone? Any scientific principle that relates to everything is made up of only one substance? Okay, well, next slide. So, if anyone noticed, this is a direct similarity to atomic theory, which is actually the same concept as monism. Instead of referring to atoms, however, we refer to everything as a manifestation of God, instead of a manifestation of a combination of atoms. Next slide, please. So another thing I'd like to talk about is something called prana and akasha, also known as para and apara. So this is an ancient Vedic concept that says the world is divided into two types of materials. There's prana, which is the manifesting power of the universe, and akasha, which is the existence of form. Ultimately, these are just two different forms of God. Back one, please. So this same principle was stated very concisely by that man who may look familiar to many of you at the bottom, whose name happens to be Albert Einstein. Next slide. Einstein, however, chose to refer to these as matter and energy, and he related them through the most famous equation of all time as E equals mc squared. This basically states that energy and matter are both just the same thing, and they can be converted to each other with the speed of light. Now, if you remember from earlier what I was talking about, this was the same concept as what Hinduism tried to explain through para and apara, or prana and akasha. Prana and akasha were just two different forms. One was form, and one was the energy to make form. And Hinduism had this thousands and thousands of years before Europe was even developed. Another concept that many of you should know is karma. Karma is simply said as what goes around comes around. And you can also say if you do good or if you do bad, good or bad things will happen to you in return. So for all of you math geeks out there, this also relates directly to probability. So now, if you assume that the chances of something good happening to you and something bad happening to you are equal, and we say that doing something good to another and not getting recognition is equivalent to something bad happening to you. Therefore, since the probability of something good happening and something bad happening is, if you do something good without getting something back for it, something good will happen to you in return. Simple probability. So I would like to thank you all for listening to my presentation, and to remember that Hinduism is not contradicted by the scientific principles that many of you will learn in school or have already learned and are using very valiantly in your jobs. Thank you very much. Hari Om.